So I was talking the whole time. I was talking the whole time to myself. How's about now? Can you hear anything now? It sounds good now. Okay. So I've been saying hello to all of you and chatting away. So I'm not going to do that all over again. So just know that I've already said hi. And I was just, hey, welcome Ginny. I was just saying this is week 3 of starting at Spui, S-P-U-I. And I'm going to be heading away from Spui this week. But thanks for joining everybody. And yeah, I was just saying how cool this is. So let's look at that again. With the autumn leaves and the church, the Kreitberg Church. So a very pretty, lovely evening. And it's not raining, which is just fantastic. Not only has this October been the wettest October, I know we're in November now, but this year I think is now actually the wettest year on record. So, you know, like we've really done the rain, but I haven't even done one of these Monday tours in driving rain. And so I've been very, very lucky, considering they've still got the scaffolding up here on the old Lutheran church, unfortunately. Oh, I haven't been to Gdansk. And oh, there's so many places I want to go. So many. Hey, but anyway, I see I'm already been online for almost 4 minutes. So let's crack on. Here we are, as I said, again on Spui. Let me just cross the tram lines without getting killed. And I've been waiting for these roadworks to be finished here, but they seem to be doing nothing. And they have seemed to be doing nothing for weeks and weeks and weeks. I haven't shown you these yet because I've been pointing the camera in a different direction. But anyway, back on Spui. What I want to start with, I'm going to be talking about a few places, but then also a couple of really kind of interesting, quirky Amsterdam characters. And the first character to introduce on this tour is a guy who's known to history as Robert Jasper Grootveld. I say known to history because to his friends he was just Jasper, or Jasper Grootveld. And he lived from 1932 to 2009. And he was recent enough that, you know, friends of mine knew him. My partner Eric actually has a flat, and the person who lived there before was Eddie. And we all loved Eddie very much. It's a very community where I live, and he was one of the people from the old days. And he and Jasper were friends, and Eddie would keep me entertained for many hours, telling stories about the 1960s and 70s and what have you. So anyway, Grootveld was an artist, he was a showman. And he wanted to be famous. Okay. He was also very anti-smoking and anti-consumerism. Now, go back to 1960-ish in Holland. And Holland was very conservative. It was very low-key. It was a kind of a no-fun zone. They were still recovering from the war and riddled with guilt about things that happened during the war. And then this next generation came along. The people who were young in the 60s. And Grootveld became like an unlikely sort of ringleader and catalyst for all sorts of crazy things happening. Now, he started with a whole lot of anti-smoking graffiti. He would graffiti a big K sign like that and spray paint. How do you like the sound effects? Onto cigarette advertising billboards, K standing for cancer in Dutch. And also he had a saying that he would say all the time, Klaas komt. Klaas komt. That means Klaas is coming. Now, it wasn't clear what the meaning of this was. He was a big fan of Sinterklaas, like the Santa Claus figure here. But then later in 1966, when Princess Beatrix, the Crown Princess, got married, she married a German guy called Klaus, which sounded sufficiently close to class, like Klaus is coming. And then suddenly Jasper seemed very, very clever and very prescient. Anyway, he had happenings. He would do these happenings in a warehouse near the Leidse Plane. And that was called the Anti-Smoking Temple. And this was lent to him by another person I'm going to talk about in quite a lot of detail a bit later. His name is Nicolaas Kruse, and the founder of the Five Flies restaurant. Now, during Jasper's happenings in this temple, he accidentally burnt it down one night, as you do. Whoopsie. And that is when the happenings got bigger, and they kind of concentrated themselves here on this little part of the square called Spui. Now, I grew up in South Africa, and when I was in my teens, which was in the 80s, all I wanted to do was go back in time and be a hippie. I thought I would have been a really good hippie. And I was interested in the happenings of Amsterdam. I'd see old videos and the happenings of Amsterdam, and they happened here. So it was really exciting for me to come here later. Now, a bit more about the happenings. We need to talk about the Provos. The Provo, glad you like the sound effects. Oh, hello, Audrey. Welcome. Yeah, the Provos were a group of people from... They got together. Provo's, a movement, only lasted 2 years officially, 65 to 67. And it was an anarchist counterculture movement. Okay, let those words sink in. Anarchist counterculture movement. And the idea was to provoke the authorities into behaving badly using non-violent methods of provocation. Okay, sort of playful, witty non-violence. They wanted to activate what they called the proletariat, like the proletariat, but the proletariat. And they met here. Why here? Well, Jasper was very anti-smoking. And here is a statue called Het Liefertje, which means the little Amsterdam darling. So this is meant to show one of Amsterdam's street youth, the little street urchins. Not necessarily living on the streets, but, you know, spending their days on the streets. Naughty as hell, but with a heart of gold. That was what Amsterdam's Liefertje was about. And this was donated to the city by a cigarette company in 1960 called Van Hunter Cigarette. So Hunter's Tobacco, basically, donated this to the city. Now, the reason that Jasper chose to have the happenings here is because he was very, very anti-smoking. He was also a heavy smoker his entire life and died of lung disease. But what he would do is have a ring of fire burning around here. And he would be dressed up with sort of funny face paint and makeup and what have you, and rags and interesting clothes. And then he would do a silly walk around the statue doing a hacking smoker's cough, like, okay, like, I'm not a smoker. And then they would shout, ugh, ugh, ugh. And this would happen at midnight on a Saturday, every Saturday, with thousands of these kind of hippies and new generation here. And then Jasper would go on this big rant and a kind of a fake sermon against the evils of tobacco and cars. They hated cars as well, saw cars as a kind of symbol of consumerism as well. And the police didn't know what to do with them. The police would end up hitting them on the head and arresting them for no good reason. And this was Provo achieving its aim. As I said, they wanted to expose the authorities as being out of touch, mean, nasty people. and they wanted to change the system by exposing its faults. Okay, so they were also interested, so I'm just going to get out of the way some people here. They were also interested in solutions, and they had a whole lot of what they called the white plans. Now, please, this definitely was not anything to do with white supremacy. Okay, let me, since I'm trying now to find the camera. Oh gosh, no, I pushed the wrong button. Oh, there we go. Okay. Since there's a lot of not moving around, I thought you can look at me for a moment. They had these different white plans, and nothing about white supremacy. White was meant to show a purity of intention. Okay, so the most famous white plan, probably that everyone still remembers, is the white bicycle plan of Amsterdam. And this was where there were bicycles taken and painted white and left on the streets, unlocked for anyone to use, and just leave at the journey's end, and somebody else could then use it. Now, the police never liked the Provos, and the police didn't like this, and it's technically illegal to leave a bicycle unlocked on the streets of Amsterdam. So what they did is the police actually confiscated them. So the solution of the Provos was to get combination locks and write the combination number on the frame of the bicycle. So that was the white bicycle plan, and it would have worked, except people stole them. Okay. Yeah. But the interesting thing about this is how this panned out with history. Is this was started by the inventor guy from Provo, Lutsky Mulpenning, and he spent the rest of his life, he's an elderly man now, he's still with us, I believe, rolling out all over the world. Whenever you know that there's like a city with a bike plan where you can use it for free for a short period of time and then pay a small amount thereafter, that is basically the Provos rolled out into the modern day. Between the 1970s and 80s somewhere, they had a shared electric car in Amsterdam. This is in the 1970s. They looked like these funny little space mobiles. They're amazing. And you needed a card, there were docking stations, and you could actually share electric cars. I mean, I don't have to tell you how far in advance of their time, excuse me, that was. They had the white chimney plan, where if a company was polluting unnecessarily, they would paint the chimney white, so they would draw public attention to this. You could basically extrapolate this forwards to things like carbon emissions quotas and that type of thing. There were some kind of quirky ones as well. There was the white family plan, and this is where 5 families would get together, and this was hippie time, and family 1 would have all the kids on a Monday, family 2 all the kids on a Tuesday, and then all the families would get their own kids back for the weekend. This is something which I've always found on my tours when I talk about it, that new parents are horrified by, but parents on their 3rd kid or something is a brilliant idea. And the white chicken plan was a cool one. Chicken, or kip, was slang for policemen here. So they wanted the policemen to really be public servants and take away their weapons, and then have them handing out plasters and condoms and chicken drumsticks to eat. Chicken wings. That one never flew. Okay. So yeah, they had all these interesting plans, and Provo became too mainstream. After about 2 years, they felt they were too mainstream. They weren't counterculture enough, so they had a death of Provo happening in the Fondel Park, and that was the end of Provo. But it's enough looking at me now. The legacy lingered on very, very far. One of their big things is that when Beatrix and Klaus got married in 1966, they put out a rumor, the Provos did, that they'd spiked the city's entire water supply with LSD. And they let off smoke bombs all over the city, causing chaos. As I said, they were anarchists as well. So there you go. It's a bit about the Provos. This bookstore here, one of the 3 on the square, the Athenaeum. I love the Art Nouveau details here. at the top, this kind of Art Nouveau whiplash pattern. 3 nice bookstalls on the square, the American bookstore, the Athenaeum, and Waterstones. So I just went in here before the tour and I've seen, oh my goodness, like 2 more books that I absolutely have to have. I have a ridiculous amount of books on Amsterdam, so I'm going to be visiting there in the not too distant future. Okay, now this started its life, this building, in 1904, and for an electric appliance shop or company. So on this ground floor here where the books are now, they had a really wonderful display of electric lights, so much so that people going for a walk in the evening would always make a point of coming back here and then looking at them. And you can see up at the top, I'm not sure if I can zoom in enough for this. I think a nice little detail, oh yeah, here you can. Oh, you can, that's really good. Is right up at the top, on the top of that spout gable. There's like a reference to the fact that it was a store about electricity. So, excuse me, I'm glad you love my jokes, Susan. It's wonderful. Okay, so the Athenaeum. Right, let me try and get a bit out the way here. The next story is about this bar on the corner called De Brabantse Aap, which means the monkey from Brabant. Brabant is a province in the south of the Netherlands. And I always think it's so funny. In Dutch you say Brabant, in French it's Brabant. Definitely sounds better in French. Everything does, doesn't it? Okay, now, there's the story about the Brabantse Aap. Oh my goodness. Okay, it's a tram. Bike trams on one side, bikes on the other. The story of the Brabantse Aap from the 1600s is that there was an organ grinder. So this dude who walked the streets, turning a street organ, and his nickname was Brabantse Yos. Yos, J-O-S, was his name, and he came from Brabant. And he had a dancing monkey who would dance to the music and then would also collect the money with a hat. And after working the week, what Brabantse Yos would do is he would visit one of the ladies in the red light district. And he had a favorite. He always visited the same lady. And her name was Soetenail, which is kind of like a bit like Sweet Nell. Nell was the closest. I don't know if there's another better translation of Nail, or Nelly. So Sweet Nelly. And she always gave the monkey a banana. Oh dear. Oh, so dear. There's just a cyclist who's crashed into a pedestrian who was crossing the bike lane in the wrong place. I'm not going to, I think she hurt herself. Dang, poor thing. Okay. So this Sweet Nelly would give the monkey a banana every week, and then she retired. So one day he went there to the red light district, and she wasn't there. And he was deeply, deeply upset. He was devastated, basically. And he went to De Waag on the New Market, and he went up onto the building, and he threw himself off the building, and basically he killed himself. Now the monkey made it back here because this was where he knew, and he was looked after by the local people. But then people started to tease the monkey, as people do, I suppose, and the monkey kind of ended up on the rooftops around here and would throw things, particularly chestnuts and anything he could find, throw them at the people below. And they tried for 2 years to catch this monkey, and they couldn't. Now, what had happened to Sweet Nelly, Soetenail, is that she'd actually left the sex work profession and she'd retired to a convent called de Bekeerde Sister, which is the converted sister. Now, news actually spread across the city about this monkey, and she realized what this was, so she came here. now as Sister Dolce Helena. And she came here, and the monkey saw her and recognized her and was so thrilled. She came with a bunch of bananas, of course, and it came flying down off the rooftops and clutched onto her and never let go, and spent the rest of his life with her at the Bekeerde Sister convent. How's about that for a happy ending? Now, I was so hoping to be able to show you the square without all these roadworks, because there's some beautiful cafes here. There's Café Luxembourg, which is a real kind of French grand cafe. It's been here since the 80s, and nom nom nom. And but it's not to be. But what I can show you is Café Hoppe. Now, this has been around since 1670. Let's just get into the right place a bit further, because it's all a bit cramped here with the roadworks. Okay. Café Hoppe is really one of the famous Amsterdam cafes. And this corner building with the red awning that says Hoppe, I was actually in there just before the tour, and I took a photograph to share with you. So this is the inside of it here. And as you may be able to see, there's sand on the floor. Now, I actually asked the guy, I said to him earlier, just before the tour, I said, like, I know it's traditional and everything, but why? And what he said to me, it was for people because they put their cigarettes out on the floor, or they empty their pipes on the floor. And also, you know, if they spill a beer, it's useful to have the sand on the floor. So they do that here, and they also do that in the Portuguese synagogue. That's not because of people putting out cigarettes and spilling beer, obviously. That's more to do with dirt, picking up the dirt and also the noise. So I think it has lots of benefits. Now, this is what's called a brown cafe. Brown cafes are like authentic Amsterdam cafes. Lots of brown wood, typically Persian carpets often. As you see my beer in the bottom left-hand corner, it was an Amstel Bock beer. Oh, it was delicious. Yeah, so stained brown ceiling from cigarette smoke typically. And in 1930, the cafe expanded it next door there. And it's been that way ever since. So this is like the standing cafe, that's the sitting one. And you can also eat there. So yeah, it's a really lovely traditional old place, been around forever. Famously, Crown Princess Beatrix and Major Boshart came here fundraising for the Salvation Army. D66, the political party, was started here. Freddie Heineken drank here. And yeah, so a place with a lot of history. I'm just going to pop into the side street here because I feel I ought to show you Vera's cookie store. Now, about 10 years ago or so, this lady called Vera from Stapelen had a cookie that she loved. And then she had it somewhere else in the world, and then she came back to make something similar, and she made something better. And this is it here. So she made this cookie with dark chocolate, which has white chocolate inside, and you're meant to eat it when it's still slightly warm, so that when you bite into it, the white chocolate in the middle is still melted. Now this has become like almost too much of a success. It used to be that there was just a little, how do you say, a little oven there in the corner. But now she actually got so I can't even move, this place is so busy. She got the places upstairs to make into the cooking, where they actually bake the cookies. So they bake them fresh all through the day. And I've got a picture inside I took earlier today. I asked them if I could just pop in and take a picture. So there it is. Yeah, I mean, it is, they actually have to now line up in the alleyway and then also line up on the next bridge. It's insane, actually. It's crazy. It's like one of those things which has just become so successful, it's really almost embarrassing because all the nearby businesses hate it because of all the congestion the whole time. But what do you do? Yeah, they are very tasty, Adrian, I must say. Indeed, very tasty. Okay, now we're going to be walking up a street probably this time and then obviously in a couple of future tours as well. This street is called Spuistraat, leading to Spui. Okay, Spui meaning sluice, which is the whole square that I've been around for the last few weeks now. But it never used to be called Spuistraat because it used to look like this. Ta-da! It was a canal. And it was the Nieuwezijds Achterburgwal, which I know is a mouthful. But this street, like many streets, was a canal. And then they had to fill in some because of just pollution, but just ease of vehicular traffic as well. That was in 1866 they closed it in. Oh, Adrian, I'm glad you like the pictures. I'm loving Prism and being able to share pictures, and I'm going to share a video in a bit of inside the most spectacular restaurant, and that's sharing the videos, which is also super, super cool. Right, let's come up here. I made it in time for the cookies, Laurie. Excellent. Hello, Paula. Okay, I want to talk about this next. This is an Indonesian restaurant called Kancil and the Tiger. Now, I love Indonesian food. I've been coming here for years. I would often pop in here for lunch, actually. They're not open for lunch anymore. And they're not even open on Sundays or Mondays. But I figured, and then what happened is that I was looking online today and I thought that the reviews on this restaurant have really tanked. You know, they threw the floor. So I will try it because it's my job, you know. I need to try these things so I can advise people. But I did thought anyway I would take the opportunity of explaining a little bit about Indonesian food because this is the first real Indonesian restaurant I've seen. So, Indonesia was a Dutch East India Company possession, and then it was actually a colony. And then it became independent. Now, a lot of people of mixed Indonesian and Dutch ancestry came here. And they made a way of eating Indonesian food here, which is called a rijsttafel, which means a rice table. And basically, it's a tasting menu. It's typical here, but not in Indonesia. In Indonesia, you tend to have a rice dish with maybe two other dishes, a meat and a salad or veg. But the tasting menu typically is, in an Indonesian restaurant here, it's typically sort of 15 to 20 little side dishes and a bunch of different rice dishes, like two rice dishes and maybe a noodles dish as well. You get a whole variety of flavors and colors and textures and spiciness. Now the way it works is there's a menu. So here, for this place here anyway, the rice table menu. So you'll see every rice table comes with what's mentioned here. I'm not going to read it all out because you can all read yourselves. But this is what you would get standard with every rice table, yeah? And then you choose one of the following. So the vegan option, the fish-based one, the meat one, and the meat and fish one. I think I would tend always to go for the meat and fish one. And you can read all the different stuff. So you get, as I said, some which is savory, some which is spicy, some which is more spicy, some with peanut sauce. I mean, it's really wonderful. I love, love, love eating it. And yeah, Audrey, you need to come try these cookies, definitely. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying definitely go to Kancil and take her, given the bad reviews at the moment, but who knows, just keep an eye. And it was always a convenient one because you could have a rice table at lunchtime, and actually for half the price as well. So anyway, just wanted to point that out. Now, on to the next really, really great character, and his name is Nicolaas Kruse. And you can see his name emblazoned on this building here. That's how you spell it, Nicolaas Kruse. Now, let's get a face to the name. And here he is. I had a real job, by the way. There are a lot of pictures online about the Provos, but there aren't any that are copyright free, besides the one I showed you that I could find, which was very frustrating. But anyway, here is Nicolaas at het Lievertje, and he lived from 1905 to 1971. Phenomenal character, raconteur, restaurateur, advocate for world peace. And he was very famous and well known for running a restaurant. Now, before we talk about the restaurant, oops, come on, there we go. Let's talk about the building. Okay, there's a couple of competing stories here. According to one book that I have, which is about Amsterdam street names, this book that I have at home was published in 1913. When looking up this particular street name here, it says from 1510, there was this guy called Jan's Zoon. So Jan, son of Jan. Okay, Jan is the most common Dutch name. And he had a sign hanging outside his house. Not a gable stone, it would have been a hanging like this, which basically predated gable stones, because the houses were still wooden then. And they had hanging signs, and on his hanging sign, it had a sign with 5 flies. So he was given the name Vijf Vliegen, 5 flies. And apparently, the street used to be known as 5 Fly Alley. Okay, Vijf Vliegensteeg. And in the 1600s, apparently the name was changed to Vliegensteeg. And then it's corrupted nowadays to Vliegendesteeg. So it's very, very confusing. And then there's a competing story, which says that this current building is from 1627. And I don't think anybody doubts that, because it's, ta-da! There you go, what more proof do you want? And it says again that a guy called Jan's Zoon in 1627 had this built. So maybe there was more than one Jan's Zoon, obviously there must have been. But the stories seem to be a bit muddled, because he was clearly an adult. He had this place built in 1627. And then he opened a tavern. So I don't know. I don't know how this all fits together, but it often happens, you know, when researching these things, that there are sort of competing stories. By the 1930s, the building was in terrible condition, and it was actually condemned to be demolished. And Nicolaas Kruse saved it. And he opened, in this little building here, the one in the middle of the screen, he opened an antiques shop called De Trapgevel. That means the stepped gable, and clearly he was naming it after the shape of the gable up there. Now what he did is he would serve his customers wine, and they came ready for the wine and the conversation, and they didn't really do much buying of antiques. So he wasn't a roaring success in the antiques trade. So what he did is he actually changed it into a tavern. And then shortly thereafter, it became a restaurant. And that was in 1939. And he decided to call the restaurant after the first owner of the building, Jan Zoons. 5 vliegen, 5 flies. And okay, he wasn't one to let facts get in the way of a good story. So he actually claimed to be a direct descendant of said Jan's Zoon. Okay, a direct descendant. And put out a statement saying, I am Nicholas V, born in 1627, and I forgot to die. I am the king of the 5 Flies Empire in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. If you come to my kingdom, I will give you an experience you will not forget. And people came. Now, I took a picture in there the other day. I love this photograph. Let me show you. It feels to me so like a Vermeer painting. All you need is like a woman reading a letter or playing a musical instrument, and hey ho, there you go. We've got a lost Vermeer on our hands. So he started up after World War II. He had to shut down during the war. And after the war, he started up and he had 9 different dining rooms, and these were all decorated. Oh, this is a KLM house. Yeah, Adrian. He had them decorated with items from his collection, his antique collection. So you'll see when I show you the video, there's antique glasses, there's a lot of Delft chinaware, like a knight's armor, you know, how you say? It is something like that. And famously, 4 Rembrandt etchings in the Rembrandt dining room. Now, what he did is he actually toured the US in 1953 as a goodwill ambassador for the Dutch Tourism Board. Oh, Ronnie, I don't think that would have worked very well. Okay. For a Dutch Tourism Board. And he went around the US. People adored him. He was so over the top. And as a result, they flocked to his restaurant when they came to Amsterdam. And if you were important and a celebrity, he would pick you up from the airport in his classic Rolls Royce, wearing a top hat and tails and a red cape. And the people who dined here are people like Walt Disney, John Wayne, Douglas Fairbanks, Gary Cooper, Jane Mansfield, and more recently Mick Jagger, Bruce Springsteen, Goldie Hawn, Gianni Versace, and Mikhail Gorbachev. In 1959, he had a turnover of about $4 million in today's money. And you know what? He's very forgetful. He forgot to pay his taxes. Oh dear. And so he had to shut down a bit and get his affairs in order. And then he had more tax problems. And he ended up selling the place in 1971 to the Krasnopolski Hotel. And yeah, it's been going ever since. It almost shut down. Now, what I did, as I said, is I went inside. Let me just play the video for you. And just a couple of days ago. And yeah, it's now actually 12 buildings. But you walk in down this corridor here, and the kitchens are on the right. And it's just before opening time, so they were kind of busy. And it's really beautiful. It's these 5 buildings. I should have shown you already. I'll show you afterwards. These 5 buildings on the street front. And yeah, you're going through room by room. And very oldie-worldy. Lots of these wonderful details on the walls everywhere. I have dined here. I dined here a long time ago. Probably like, 15, 16, 17 years ago.
Do you mind if I get you?
I'm going to go back soon. Here's the manager, who was very, very welcoming and charming and allowed me to film, and then the first time it didn't take, and then I had to do it again. It's got all these tucked away little corners like this. Really, really, really delightful. And these beautiful antiques as well. A bunch of different Genevers. Oh, Sandy, it's great. This is where the Rembrandts were on the wall to the right. They've actually been taken because, as I said, it almost shut down and it changed hands. And the old owners, not surprisingly, took the Rembrandts. Up here, oh look, the flies in the cage. Up here are the guest books going back decades. Above. This is leather wallpaper, leather embossed wallpaper that's then painted. It's so traditional. You see it in houses from the 1600s. How's this fireplace here? They have also a bunch of private dining rooms upstairs. So you could come over and have a party. I'll host it for you. Okay, you can pick up the bill. And a private dining room, how's about that? Beautiful Delphi tiles here, either side of the fireplace. And it's a bit dark, I hope you can see this. But what they would do is, like, when a famous person was there, they would have their name put on a brass plaque and then screwed to the chair they sat on. So this chair coming up here is where Bruce Springsteen, and it was so dark I couldn't really see what I was doing, and Mick Jagger below, and then David Cameron lowering the tone at the bottom. So yeah, you can sit where Bruce Springsteen sat. I know a friend of mine is a huge fan, she'd be so pleased with that. Interesting bits and pieces, collections and artworks on the walls. This looked a bit like Brightener. I know there is some Brightener in there, and I'm not sure if this was the one. I didn't think to ask. Oh, ordinary one never needs an excuse to come back to Amsterdam. The fact that one is away from Amsterdam is simply enough. No, use the sound now, I'll be talking when it's happening. So yeah, the cuisine is French with a Dutch twist. No. And here is the chair where Gorbachev sat. Yeah, this normally picks up quite well in that way. And yeah, it just goes on and on. They're not using the whole place. So, you know, I think they open up however much they can handle with the kitchen and what have you. But they've got about 4 or 5 different dining rooms on the go. Here's some of these beautiful old glasses. And, oh yeah, and these, there are just so many lovely details. You can tell he had an antique shop and didn't sell much. Beautiful, beautiful sort of medieval consoles.
So she actually thought it was Spuistraat. She was a bit disappointed. She was a bit disappointed.
I was like a dog with 2 tails when he said that I could
sorry, do you want to FaceTime?
Just film whatever I wanted at my leisure inside. It was great. And here, the old roomer. These are, you'll see these in the Rijksmuseum. These types of, they call roomers, R-O-E-M-E-R. These glasses at the top and the other ones below.
But yeah.
Hey,
Anyway.
if you could hit like, that would be great. And I think you're probably all subscribed already. But the like thing, I'm told, helps. Nooks and crannies. And yes, as I said, it just goes on and on and on. But I figured this would probably be enough. And I think, or did I go into yet another room? Oh, I went into another room. Oh, you can hear me in the background. Oh no, I'm not meant to. I thought the audio was disabled. Oh dear. I'll have to look into that. And I thought I would just end here with the logo of the restaurant. And then we have the quiz question. The 5 flies. Beautiful, huh? So that is this and this, 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. So spread over all of these buildings and a bunch of buildings behind as well. Okay, so the quiz today, for anyone who does not have a slicey, is the statue that I showed you at the beginning. Het Amsterdamse lievertje, the little Amsterdam darling, was donated to the city in 1960 by a company that made what? What was the product of the company that donated the statue Het lievertje to Amsterdam City for a slicey. If anybody doesn't have a slicey, maybe you all have sliceys already. If you do have a slicey already, just hang back a little bit, and then if nobody answers, you can play again and nominate somebody else if you wish. No, Susan. Yes, Natalie. They sold cigarettes. Okay. Natalie, I can't remember if I've sent you a slicey or not, because I'm a believer in privacy. So I don't keep track of these things. So if you want one, Doug, Anthony, hello. If you do want one, Natalie, then just reach out to me and email me. My email is in the description. Hey, in the description also are links to my Buy Me a Coffee and PayPal and stuff if you want to make a donation. Be cool towards my beer. And I'll... Who hasn't one already? I know. Maybe I need to rethink this. But anyway, thank you for joining, everybody. And Jenny doesn't have one already. This is true. I think we should rectify this, Jenny. And you know, I got such a beautiful haul of slices. I got 39 I liberated with Lee last week, and there's some really cool ones. Ginny Mark. Okay, Ginny. Natalie just nominated you for a slicey. Awesomeness. Okay, Ginny, you know where to find me. And if you can reach out and give me your address and stuff, that'd be cool. Thank you for joining, everybody. I'm going to go off and have a couple of beers now. And yeah, this is also the day that comes around once a year. So what I'm doing with Lee a bit later is we're going at 7 o'clock because it is the Trans Day of Remembrance today. And this is a global thing that happens where all over the world, transgender people get together, and the names of all the trans men and women in the world who have been murdered for the last year for being trans. Okay, not just because they died or something, actually murdered for being trans. Their names are all read out, and their age and the country where they were from. And it's something which, as I said, happens all over the world, and I think it's important to attend these things to show solidarity for a community that is so often on the receiving end of so much prejudice. So that's what's happening this evening. You can find a way of tuning in online, I'm sure, if it's of interest to you as well. So bye-bye, and hope to see you next week. Ciao. Hey, hi, The Charge Show. Hi, yes, I need to hand deliver you a slicey when you come to visit. Okay, bye everyone.